The Blood Talon was secured within an hour. The few surviving Vralketh warriors surrendered once they realized resistance was hopeless. Taesung watched as they were processed and moved to detention areas. They looked smaller now, less terrifying. Without their aura of invincibility, they were just another species that had lost a fight. Minseo organized the human crew members into groups. Medical attention first for the wounded, then debriefing for everyone. Taesung found himself sitting in what used to be a storage room, now converted into a temporary medical station. A Terran medic checked him over, treating minor cuts and bruises. "You're lucky," the medic said. She was young, maybe his age, with a gentle manner. "Nothing serious. You'll be sore for a few days, but you'll live." "Thanks," Taesung muttered. He felt numb, his body finally processing everything that had happened. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him exhausted and shaky. The medic noticed. "First real combat?" "First combat against them. I've been in fights before, but never—" He trailed off. "Never as the attacker." "I understand." She finished bandaging his arm. "Get some rest if you can. The Admiral wants to speak with all Resistance members tomorrow. Rest." Taesung almost laughed. How could he rest? But when he found a quiet corner and sat down, his body had other ideas. Within minutes, he was asleep. He woke to someone shaking his shoulder. It was Sojin. "Come on. They're organizing the ground assault on Kelo 7. They want all of us who know the surface terrain." Taesung rubbed his eyes and followed her to the command center. It had been cleaned up, the bodies removed, the blood scrubbed away. Now it was full of Terran officers reviewing data and making plans. Admiral Dong Hyun stood at the center, a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Ah, our resistance fighters," the Admiral said when he saw them. "I've been reviewing your files. Impressive work, all of you. The sabotage you performed saved lives on both sides." He gestured to a holographic display showing Kilo 7. "Now we need your help finishing this. There are still 30,000 civilians in the detention camps on the surface. The Vralketh garrison is dug in deep. We need intelligence on the layout, the defenses, the command structure." For the next 2 hours, Taesung and the others shared everything they knew. Locations of the camps, patrol routes, weak points in the defenses. The Terran officers listened carefully, asking detailed questions, building a complete picture. "All right," Admiral Dong Hyun finally said. "We'll begin the assault at dawn. Minseo, your battalion will lead the ground forces. Secure the camps first, then move on the garrison. I want minimal civilian casualties." "Understood, sir." Minseo looked at Taesung. "I want you with us. You know the terrain, and the people down there will trust a familiar face more than a stranger." "I'm not a soldier," Taesung protested. "No, but you're a survivor, and right now that's just as valuable." She handed him a set of armor. "Get fitted. We drop in 6 hours." The armor felt strange on his body. Real protection, not the thin maintenance suits he had worn for years. The Terran Marines showed him how to operate it, how to use the built-in communications and sensors. They gave him a weapon too, though they didn't expect him to use it much. "Your support," a Marine sergeant named Tae-ho explained. "Stay behind us, guide us to the right locations, help with the civilians." "Let us handle the fighting." Taesung met Jiwoo in one of the corridors. The older man looked lost, confused. When he saw Taesung in Terran armor, his expression became even more bewildered. "You," Jiwoo said quietly. "You were part of it." "The rebellion? Yes, why didn't you tell me?" "They didn't trust you." "I'm sorry." Taesung took a step closer. "Come with us. Join the assault. It's not too late to be on the right side." But Jiwoo shook his head. "I'm too old, Taesung. Too tired. I survived by not picking sides, and I'll keep surviving that way." He looked at the younger man with sad eyes. "Good luck. I hope you find your sister." They didn't embrace. They didn't shake hands. Jiwoo just turned and walked away, and Taesung let him go. Some people couldn't be saved because they didn't want to be. The dropships launched at dawn, just as planned. Taesung sat in the troop bay with 40 Terran Marines, feeling his stomach lurch as they descended through Kilo 7's atmosphere. Red dust swirled past the viewports. He remembered arriving here months ago with the Vralketh. Everything had been different then. The landing was rougher than he expected. The Vralketh fired surface-to-air weapons, forcing the pilots to take evasive action. But the dropships were tough, designed to take punishment. They landed in a cloud of red dust, ramps dropping before they even fully settled. Minseo led her Marines out at a run. Taesung followed, trying to keep up. The camp was 2 kilometers away, across open terrain that offered little cover. Vralketh warriors were already moving to intercept them, but this time it was different. Terran gunships swept overhead, hammering the Vralketh positions with precision strikes. Artillery shells fell in perfect patterns, destroying defensive emplacements. The Marines advanced in tight formation, moving from cover to cover, their training obvious in every action. The Vralketh fought back hard. They were brave, Taesung had to give them that. But bravery without tactics was just dying loud. The Terran forces moved around them, isolated them, cut them off from support. It was like watching a machine work, every part moving in perfect coordination. They reached the first detention camp within an hour. The gates were locked, and Vralketh guards were inside with the prisoners. Minseo didn't charge the gates. Instead, she had her engineers plant breaching charges on the walls, blowing holes in 3 different locations simultaneously. The Marines poured through, overwhelming the guards before they could harm the civilians. Taesung entered the camp and found thousands of people staring at him with hollow eyes. They looked like he had looked 3 years ago, defeated, broken, hopeless. "It's over," he told them in Korean, then in English, then in Mandarin. "The Terran fleet is here. You're free." At first, no one moved. They didn't believe it. How could they? But then a child started crying and a woman started laughing, and suddenly everyone was moving, talking, crying, embracing each other. The Marines organized them quickly, herding them toward the landing zones where transport ships were waiting. They liberated 3 more camps over the next 6 hours. Each time was the same: disbelief, then overwhelming emotion. Taesung helped where he could, translating, calming people, guiding them to safety. It felt good to be helping instead of just surviving. The final objective was the garrison headquarters, where the Vralketh commander had holed up with his remaining forces. It was a fortress built into the side of a mountain with thick walls and heavy weapons. Dalnim was in command now, Grexith's second in command. He broadcast a message saying he would fight to the last. Minseo didn't give him the chance. While the Vralketh waited for a frontal assault, she sent teams through the old mining tunnels that honeycombed the mountain. They came up inside the fortress, attacking from within. Dalnim fought viciously, killing 3 Marines before he was finally brought down. By sunset, it was over. The last Vralketh on Kelo 7 had either surrendered or died. The planet was free. Taesung stood on a ridge overlooking the main camp, watching as thousands of people boarded transport ships. They were going to safe worlds, to new colonies being established in liberated systems. They were going home, even if they had to build that home from scratch. "You did well today," Minseo said, joining him on the ridge. "We couldn't have done it this smoothly without your help. I just guided you. You did the real work. Maybe. But you also believed in us before you even saw us. That takes a different kind of courage." She looked out at the transports. "What will you do now? There's a place for you in the Terran military if you want it. We need people who understand how to survive out here, who know what the occupation was like." Taesung thought about it. Part of him wanted to say yes immediately, to be part of this organized force, this human unity. But another part of him was exhausted, wanting only to find his sister and rest. "Can I think about it?" he asked. "Take all the time you need. We'll be in this sector for months, liberating the other systems. When you're ready, find me." She turned to leave, then paused. "By the way, we located your sister. She's on Station Deneb 4, safe and healthy. We've sent a message telling her you're alive. You'll be able to contact her once we establish the communication network." Taesung felt tears in his eyes. Thank you, Taesung, for not giving up, for believing there was something better than just survival." Minseo smiled. "That's what makes us human." That night, Taesung sat in the transport ship heading back to the fleet. Around him were other freed prisoners, talking, laughing, crying, processing everything that had happened. He thought about the last 3 years, about serving the Vralketh, about believing humans were broken and weak. He had been wrong. Humans weren't weak. They had just been scattered, disorganized, waiting for the right moment. And when that moment came, when Earth finally reached out to its lost children, they had responded with everything they had. He thought about Jiwoo, still on the blood talon, refusing to believe in hope. He thought about Hyunwoo, dying for that hope. The blood talon shook violently as another impact struck its hull. Taesung braced himself against the wall, feeling the metal vibrate under his hands. Around him, the other humans looked scared but determined. They had barricaded the entrance to the human quarters using whatever furniture and equipment they could move. It wasn't much, but it was something. "Do you really think they'll come for us?" a young woman asked. Her name was Hia Jin, and she had been working in the ship's hydroponics bay. "They'll come," Taesung said, hoping it was true. "We just need to hold out." A roar echoed down the corridor. "Vrelketh." Taesung heard heavy footsteps approaching and knew their small rebellion had been discovered. He tightened his grip on the metal pipe he was holding and moved to the front of the barricade. 3 Vrelketh warriors appeared at the end of the corridor. When they saw the barricade, they stopped. The lead warrior, a scarred veteran with 3 functioning arms, stared at the humans with something like confusion. "What are you doing, softskins?" "Get to your stations!" "No," Taesung said. His voice shook, but he didn't move. "We're done taking orders." The confusion on the warrior's face turned to rage. "You dare?" He started forward, all 3 arms reaching for weapons. Before he could attack, an explosion tore through the deck above them. Sparks rained down and the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Through the chaos, Taesung heard Young-Soo's voice in his communicator. "Targeting systems are down. Repeat, targeting systems are down." The Vrelketh warrior was distracted by the explosion. Taesung saw his chance and swung the pipe with all his strength. It connected with the warrior's knee and the massive alien stumbled. The other humans surged forward, attacking with their improvised weapons. It wasn't graceful or skilled, but there were 12 of them and only 3 Vrelketh. They won. Barely. Taesung stood over the body of the scarred warrior, breathing hard, blood on his hands. Around him, the other humans were checking each other for injuries. 2 were hurt but alive. "We actually did it," someone whispered in amazement. But there was no time to celebrate. More footsteps were coming, many more. Taesung looked at his small group and knew they couldn't win another fight. Then the ship shuddered differently. Not from weapons fire, but from something docking. Metal screeched against metal. The sound of magnetic clamps locking into place echoed through the walls. Boarding craft, Taesung realized. Terran Marines are coming, he was right. Through the corridor behind them he heard new sounds. Not the heavy thuds of Vrelketh warriors, but lighter, faster footsteps. Human footsteps. Then came weapons fire, controlled and precise. Nothing like the wild aggression of the Vrelketh. A voice called out in Korean, "Identify yourself." "We're human crew members," Taesung shouted back. "Friendlies." 3 figures appeared at the end of the corridor, moving with practiced efficiency. They wore proper armor, the kind Taesung had only seen in old videos from before the scattering. Black and silver, equipped with advanced weapons and tactical gear. The lead figure's helmet retracted, revealing a woman's face. She was maybe 25 with sharp eyes and a confident expression. "I'm Lieutenant Minseo, Terran Marines, 3rd Battalion." She took in the scene quickly. The barricade, the dead Vrelketh, the humans with their improvised weapons. "You're the resistance cell Sojin organized?" "Yes," Taesung said. "Is she?" "She's fine. Secured the communication array 10 minutes ago." Minseo gestured to her squad. "We're taking the command center. Can you walk?" "Yes, then come with us. We'll secure you once the ship is taken." She moved forward, her squad following. They passed the dead Vrelketh without even looking at them. To these soldiers, 3 alien warriors weren't a victory. They were just obstacles that had been cleared. Taesung and his group followed the Marines through the ship. The difference in movement was striking. Where the Vrelketh relied on size and aggression, the Terran Marines moved like water, flowing around corners, covering each other with practiced precision. They didn't shout or roar. They used hand signals and tight communications. They encountered a group of 5 Vrelketh warriors in one of the main corridors. The aliens charged forward with typical aggression, believing their strength would carry the day. The Marines didn't panic. They spread out, used cover, and fired in coordinated bursts. The fight was over in 30 seconds. All 5 Vrelketh were down. None of the Marines were even scratched. How? Taesung couldn't help but ask. "They're so much stronger than us." Minseo reloaded her weapon without breaking stride. "Strength isn't everything. They're bigger, tougher, hit harder, but they're predictable. They charge straight at you every time. They think courage means facing your enemy head on." She glanced back at him. "Humans learned a long time ago that the smart fighter beats the strong fighter. We adapt, they don't." They reached the command center to find it already under siege. Grexith had barricaded himself inside with 20 of his best warriors. The doors were reinforced, designed to withstand a direct assault. But the Terran Marines weren't planning a direct assault. So-Jin was there, working on a console. She looked up when she saw Tae-sung and smiled. "You made it. Barely." He watched as she entered commands. "What are you doing?" "Overriding the door locks from out here. The Vrelketh designed these systems for strength, not security. They never imagined anyone would hack them." She pressed a final button. "There. Doors open in 3 seconds." The massive command center doors slid open. Inside, Grexith and his warriors were ready, weapons raised. But the Marines were already moving. They threw flashbang grenades first, blinding and disorienting the Vrelketh. Then they entered fast, using the confusion to take positions. The fight in the command center was brutal but brief. The Vrelketh fought with desperate courage, but courage without strategy was just dying slowly. The Marines coordinated their fire, supported each other, and used the command center's own equipment as cover. One by one, the Vrelketh fell. Grexith was the last standing. The massive warlord, bleeding from multiple wounds, raised his forearms and roared a challenge. "Face me, one warrior to another! Or are you cowards?" Mincio stepped forward. She was maybe 5.5 feet tall, less than half Grexith's size. She holstered her rifle and drew a shorter weapon, something like a sword but with energy crackling along its edge. "You want single combat?" she asked calmly. "Fine," Grexith charged. His forearms swung like hammers, each blow strong enough to crush bones. But Mincio wasn't there when the blows landed. She moved like wind, dodging and weaving. Her sword cut precise lines across Grexith's limbs, hamstringing his movements. She wasn't trying to overpower him. She was dismantling him. The warlord's roars turned from fury to frustration to pain. He stumbled, tried to catch her, failed. His movements became slower, clumsier. Blood loss was taking its toll. "You were supposed to be prey," Grexith gasped, falling to his knees. Mincio stood in front of him. "We were never prey," she said quietly. "We were just waiting." Her blade ended it quickly. Tae-sung stood at the edge of the command center, watching as Terran Marines secured the ship. Through the viewports, he could see the battle outside. The Vrelketh fleet was breaking apart. Their ships were being destroyed or disabled one by one. The Terran fleet moved with mechanical precision, each ship supporting the others, their tactics flawless. "It's over," So-Jin said, standing beside him. "The Vrelketh are retreating. Admiral Dong-hyun is broadcasting surrender terms." "Just like that?" "Just like that," she smiled. "The Vrelketh aren't stupid. They can see they're beaten. They'll retreat to their core systems and hope humanity doesn't chase them. Will we? Eventually. But first we have a lot of humans to liberate." She gestured to the viewport. 15 star systems, Tae-sung. "Hundreds of thousands of our people living under alien rule. The fleet will hit all of them simultaneously. By this time next month, every human in this sector will be free." Tae-sung thought about Kyung-mi. "My sister is in the Deneb sector." "Is that Phase 2 of the liberation? 3 months from now." So-Jin put a hand on his shoulder. "We'll find her, Tae-sung. I promise." Behind them, Mincio was organizing her troops. "All right, people. Get me damage reports. I want casualty counts in 10 minutes. And someone get these civilian crews medical attention." She caught Tae-sung's eye. "You and your people did good work today. Earth won't forget it." Tae-sung looked at his hands. They were still shaking from the adrenaline, still covered in blood. He had fought beside beasts for 3 years, but in one day he had seen what humans could do when they fought together, when they fought smart instead of strong, when they fought for each other instead of just survival. It made all the difference. 3 weeks passed. Hyunwoo died during interrogation. Dalneem threw his body into the mass grave outside the city without ceremony. Tae-sung stood at the edge of that grave during his watch shift and felt something harden inside him. The old man had died believing help was coming. Tae-sung hoped he was right. The Vrelketh fleet moved into high orbit around Kalos 7. 30 warships, each one bristling with weapons. Grexith called it a show of force, a message to any other colonies thinking about rebellion. But Tae-sung noticed the defensive formation. They weren't just showing power. They were preparing for something. The human mercenaries were transferred to the Blood Talon, the largest Vrelketh warship in the fleet. It was a brutal vessel, all sharp angles and dark metal. Inside, the corridors were too tall for humans, forcing them to feel small and weak. The Vrelketh liked it that way. Tae-sung was assigned to maintenance duty. He worked with a crew of 5 other humans, checking systems and making repairs. It was during one of these shifts that he met Young-Soo. The man was thin and nervous with quick hands and intelligent eyes. He worked in the communications section, monitoring transmissions and maintaining the ship's sensor arrays. He barely spoke to the other humans at first, keeping his head down and working quietly. But one day, while Tae-sung was repairing a panel near the communications station, Young-Soo leaned close and whispered, "Are you loyal to them?" Tae-sung's heart jumped. It was a dangerous question. "I'm loyal to surviving." "That's not what I asked." They worked in silence for several minutes. Finally, Tae-sung said, "No, I'm not loyal to them." Young-Soo nodded slowly. "Good, because I've been intercepting transmissions. Real ones, not the official channels. There's something coming. Something big." He glanced around to make sure no Vralketh were watching. The fleet received orders to intercept a human convoy 3 days from now. "Supplies," they said. "Easy target, and I've seen the sensor data." "That's not a convoy." Young-Soo's voice dropped even lower. "It's a warship. A Terran warship. They're being led into a trap." Before Tae-sung could respond, the deck shuddered. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A Vralketh officer roared orders and crew members rushed to their stations. Tae-sung and Young-Soo were shoved aside as warriors sprinted toward the weapon sections. "What's happening?" Tae-sung shouted over the noise. Young-Soo checked his console, his fingers flying over the controls. His face went pale. Multiple contacts. Lots of them. They just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Tae-sung's breath caught. "How many?" "I'm counting. 12 capital ships. 40 smaller vessels. Maybe more." Young-Soo looked up and there was something like wonder in his eyes. "It's them. The Terran fleet, they're here." The next hour was chaos. The Vralketh fleet scrambled to battle positions. Grexith's voice boomed over the ship's communication system, calling his warriors to glory and promising them honor in battle. The human crew members were ordered to their stations but largely ignored. The Vralketh didn't trust them with weapons, didn't believe they would be useful in a real fight. Tae-sung found himself in an observation section, staring through the reinforced windows at the space beyond. He could see other Vralketh ships moving into formation. In the distance, tiny points of light were growing larger. The Terran fleet was approaching. Someone touched his shoulder. He turned to find a woman standing behind him. She was Korean, maybe 30 years old, with short dark hair and calm eyes. She wore a maintenance uniform like his, but something about her was different. More confident. "More dangerous, Tae-sung?" she asked quietly. "Who are you?" "My name is So-jin. I've been on this ship for 8 months. She smiled slightly. "Hyun-woo was my contact on Kilo 7. Before he died, he sent me a list of names. Humans who might be willing to help when the time came. Your name was on that list." Tae-sung glanced around. They were alone in the observation section for now. "Help with what?" So-jin pulled out a small data chip. "This contains everything I've gathered about the Vralketh fleet. Ship specifications, weapon systems, commander profiles, formation strategies. The Terran fleet needs this information. But more than that, they need us to act. When the battle starts, we sabotage this ship. We give our people every advantage we can. That's suicide. Even if we succeed, the Vralketh will hunt down every human on this ship. They'll try. But by then, Terran Marines will be boarding. We just need to survive long enough." So-jin's expression was serious. "I know what I'm asking. I know the risk. But look out there." She gestured to the approaching lights. "That's Earth. That's our people coming to save us. After 80 years of defeat, humans are finally fighting back. Are you going to sit here and watch, or are you going to help?" Tae-sung thought about Kyung-mi. He thought about Hyun-woo dying in that cell. He thought about 3 years of serving aliens who saw him as nothing but a useful animal. "What do you need me to do?" Over the next 2 hours, So-jin gathered 6 more humans. Young-Soo was one of them, a woman named Boram who worked in engineering, a man named Tae-min who had access to the weapons locker, 2 others whose names Tae-sung didn't catch. They met in a storage room, speaking in whispers while the ship prepared for battle. "The plan is simple," So-jin explained. "When the battle starts, we split up. Young-Soo will sabotage the targeting systems. Boram and Tae-min will disable the main power conduits to the weapons batteries. I'll handle the communication array to prevent them from coordinating with the other ships. Tae-sung, you and the others will lock down the human quarters and set up a defensive position. When Terran Marines board, we guide them to the command center." "What about Jiwoo?" Tae-sung asked. The older man deserved to know what was happening, so Jin's expression softened. I tried to recruit him. 2 weeks ago. He refused. He said he's too old to believe in hope anymore. I'm sorry, Taesung, but we can't tell him. He might inform the Vralketh even if he doesn't mean to. That hurt, but Taesung understood. Jiwoo had been broken by too many years of service. Some chains couldn't be unlocked. The battle began with a flash of light that made the observation windows automatically dim. Taesung watched as the Terran fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced across the darkness, striking Vralketh ships with precision. Explosions bloomed like flowers, but the Vralketh were fighters. Their ships charged forward, firing massive kinetic weapons that tore through space. The first Terran cruiser took a direct hit and went dark, spinning away from the formation. Now, Sojin's voice came through Taesung's communicator. Move now. Taesung ran. The corridors were nearly empty, with most of the crew at battle stations. He made it to the human quarters and found a dozen confused faces staring at him. We're taking this ship, he announced.
Anyone who wants to help, grab whatever you can use as a weapon.
Anyone who doesn't, stay here and stay quiet. To his surprise, most of them grabbed something. Tools, pieces of metal, anything that could be swung or thrown. They weren't warriors, but they were tired of being helpless. An explosion rocked the ship. Emergency lights flickered. Through the walls, Taesung could hear the muffled sounds of battle. He thought about Jiwoo, probably at his station, probably wondering what was happening. I'm sorry, Taesung whispered to his absent friend. I'm sorry I didn't save you too. Then he gripped his improvised weapon and prepared for the fight of his life. The alarm turned out to be a false contact. Just a debris field from an old battle drifting through the system. Grexith punished the sensor operator anyway, breaking one of the Vralketh's arms as an example. The other warriors watched and nodded approval. That was their way. Mistakes meant pain, but something had changed. Taesung noticed it in the way the Vralketh commanders held more frequent meetings, the way they watched the human mercenaries more carefully, the way Grexith's second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Dalnim, started checking their equipment personally every morning. They're nervous, Jiwoo whispered during breakfast the next day. I've never seen them like this before. Taesung had to agree. The Vralketh were many things, but nervous wasn't usually one of them. They fought with absolute confidence, believing their strength made them unstoppable. But now there was something different in the air, something that smelled like fear. The occupation of Kalo 7 continued. The human mercenaries were ordered to process the prisoners and organize the work details. It was during this duty that Taesung met Hyunwoo. The man was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes that still held fire. He had been identified as one of the rebel leaders, which meant he should have been executed already. But Dalnim wanted information first, so Hyunwoo was kept in a special detention cell. Taesung was assigned to guard him. It was boring work standing outside a locked door for hours. But on the third day, Hyunwoo spoke through the small window in the door. You're Korean. Taesung looked around, making sure no Vralketh were nearby. So are you. My family came from Busan, 4th generation on Kalo 7, but we kept the language alive. Kept the culture alive. Hyunwoo's face appeared at the window. What's your name, young man? Taesung. A good name, strong. The older man smiled sadly. Tell me, Taesung, do you know the history of our people? Our real history, not the lies the aliens tell. I know we lost. 80 years ago, humanity was scattered. Earth fell. The colonies were divided up between the stronger races. Taesung recited the facts he had learned. We're survivors of a broken empire. Is that what you believe? Hyunwoo asked. That we're just broken pieces of something dead? What else is there to believe? Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Lower, more intense. We had an empire, yes. Hundreds of colonies, thousands of ships. We spread across the stars like no other species had before. But we were young and stupid. We thought space was empty, that we were alone. Then we met the others. Taesung had heard this story before, but something about the way Hyunwoo told it made him listen more carefully. The Vralketh, the Dresh, the Korthax Collective. They were old races, established and powerful. They saw us as invaders, as aggressive newcomers taking resources they believed were theirs. So they united for the first time in their history. United against us, the scattering, Taesung said. It was what every human knew. The Great War that broke humanity's back. Yes, the scattering. They hit us hard and fast, destroyed our fleets, conquered our worlds. Earth fought to the last, but even Earth fell eventually. We were scattered across the galaxy. Refugees on our own colonies, slaves on alien worlds. Hyunwoo's eyes gleamed. But here's what they don't tell you, Taesung. Earth didn't die. What? Earth was conquered, yes. Occupied for 20 years. But the occupation failed. Humans are good at resistance, at fighting from the shadows. We drove them off our homeworld. It took time and blood, but we did it. Hyunwoo pressed his face closer to the window. And once Earth was free, it started remembering. Remembering all the children scattered across the stars. Taesung felt his heart beating faster. The rumors are true. There's really a Terran fleet. More than a fleet. A government. A military. A purpose. Hyunwoo smiled. For 60 years, Earth has been building. Slowly, carefully, learning from our mistakes. They couldn't help us right away. They were too weak, too exposed. But they've been sending agents, gathering intelligence, making contact with resistance groups on every human colony. How do you know this? Because I'm one of those agents. Hyunwoo's smile widened. I've been on Kalo 7 for 12 years, organizing the refugees, preparing them for the day when help would come. The rebellion wasn't random, Taesung. It was a signal. A way to draw Vralketh forces here to this system. That's insane. You got thousands of people killed just to send a signal? I got thousands of people killed to save millions, Hyunwoo corrected. The Terran fleet is coming, soon. They'll hit the Vralketh here and in 6 other systems simultaneously. But they need intelligence, troop positions, ship specifications, supply lines. He looked directly into Taesung's eyes. They need people on the inside. Before Taesung could respond, footsteps echoed down the corridor. He turned to see Dalnim approaching with 2 other Vralketh warriors. The massive alien stopped in front of the door and stared down at Taesung. You, soft skin, why are you talking to the prisoner? He was asking for water, Taesung lied. I was telling him to wait, Dalnim's small eyes narrowed. Water is for those who earn it. This one has earned nothing but pain. The alien pushed past Taesung and opened the cell door. Move aside, human. We're going to have a conversation with the rebel. Taesung stepped back. He watched as the 3 Vralketh entered the cell. He heard the first blow, then Hyunwoo's grunt of pain. But he didn't hear screaming. Even under torture, the old man didn't scream. That night, Taesung found Jiwoo in their quarters. The older man was hunched over his scanner, earphones in, listening to something. When he saw Taesung, he quickly tried to hide the device. It's okay, Taesung said. I need to hear it too. Jiwoo hesitated, then handed over the earphones. Taesung put them in and listened, static at first. Then a voice, female, speaking Korean with a Seoul accent. This is Terran Broadcast Station 7. Today marks the liberation of New Pyongyang in the Cassiopeia sector. Terran Marines have successfully evacuated 15,000 civilians and established a defensive perimeter. The Dresh occupation force retreated after sustaining heavy casualties. To all humans listening in the occupied territories, Earth remembers. Earth is coming. Hold on. The message repeated in other languages. Taesung listened to all of them. His hands were shaking. It's real, he whispered. I know, Jiwoo said. I've been listening for months. At first I thought it was propaganda or maybe a trick. But the broadcasts are too detailed, too consistent. They're winning, Taesung. Humans are winning. Hyunwoo told me they're coming here. To Kalo 7. Jiwoo's expression turned serious. Then we need to decide something. When they arrive, which side will we be on? It was the question Taesung had been avoiding. He had survived for 3 years by not thinking about sides, by just doing what was necessary. But now that survival strategy felt like cowardice. The Vralketh will kill any human who betrays them, Taesung said quietly. They'll kill us anyway, eventually. You know that. We're useful now, but the moment we're not, we're dead. Jiwoo leaned forward. I'm old, Taesung. I've accepted my place in this universe. But you're young. You have a sister out there. Don't you want to see her in a free world? Taesung thought about Kyungmi. He thought about Hyunwoo being tortured in the cell below. He thought about the little girl lying dead against the wall in the city. Yes, he finally said. Yes, I do. The dust never settled on Kalos 7. Taesung had learned this during his first week on the mining world. Red dust hung in the air like blood, coating everything, getting into every crack of his armor. He stood at the edge of the landing zone, watching the Vralketh warriors unload their weapons from the transport ships. They were massive creatures, each one standing over 8 feet tall with 4 muscular arms and skin like gray stone. Their commander, Warlord Grexith, barked orders in their harsh language, and the warriors moved with brutal efficiency. Tae-sung had served the Vralkith for 3 years now. 3 years since his colony had been destroyed. 3 years since he had watched his parents die in the raid that scattered his people across the outer systems. He touched the small photograph in his chest pocket, the only picture he had of his sister Kyung-mi. She was safe on a refugee station somewhere in the Deneb sector. At least that's what the last message had said. That was 8 months ago. Tae-sung, get over here. Jiwoo's voice crackled through his helmet comm. The older man was standing near a stack of supply crates, his weathered face barely visible through his helmet's scratched visor. Jiwoo had been a mercenary for almost a decade. He never talked about his life before, but sometimes Tae-sung caught him staring at the stars with empty eyes. Tae-sung jogged over, his boots kicking up more red dust. What do we have? Same as always. We're on cleanup duty while the big ones do the real fighting. Jiwoo gestured toward the city in the distance. Smoke rose from several buildings. The rebellion here had been going on for 2 months, and the Vralketh were hired to end it. They didn't believe in negotiation. They believed in overwhelming force. How many civilians are still in there? Tae-sung asked. Jiwoo shrugged. Does it matter? Grexith doesn't care. You know the rules. Everyone in the city is considered hostile until proven otherwise. Tae-sung did know the rules. He had seen them applied on 4 different worlds. The Vralketh saw humans as useful tools, nothing more. They called them soft skins, weak creatures good for technical work and dangerous missions. But humans were scattered across hundreds of systems now, disorganized and powerless. Working for alien mercenary companies was often the only way to survive. A roar echoed across the landing zone. Grexith was addressing his warriors, his forearms raised high. Even though Tae-sung didn't understand all the words, he knew what the warlord was saying. Take the city. Show no mercy. Prove your strength. The Vralketh lived by a simple philosophy. Might makes right. The strong ruled, the weak served or died. Move out. The human mercenaries were always at the back of the formation. They carried the supplies, operated the technical equipment, and cleared buildings after the Vralketh had done the heavy fighting. Tae-sung fell in line with 30 other humans, all of them wearing mismatched armor and carrying whatever weapons they could get. The march to the city took 2 hours. The Vralketh didn't get tired, and they set a brutal pace. Tae-sung's legs burned, but he kept moving. Weakness meant death in this life. He had learned that quickly. The assault began at dawn. Vralketh warriors smashed through the outer defenses like they were made of paper. Tae-sung heard screams, explosions, and the constant thunder of heavy weapons. His squad was ordered to secure the eastern sector, which meant walking through streets where the fighting had already happened. Bodies lay everywhere. Not just rebels, but families, children, old people who couldn't run fast enough. Tae-sung tried not to look, but it was impossible. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, lay curled against a wall. Her eyes were open, staring at nothing. Keep moving, Jiwoo said quietly. His voice was flat, emotionless. You can't think about it. Just keep moving. But Tae-sung couldn't stop thinking about it. How many times had he done this? How many worlds had he walked through after the Vralketh had finished? He told himself he was just surviving, that he had no choice. But somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered that he was lying to himself. They spent 3 days clearing the city. The rebellion was crushed completely. Grexith declared victory and announced that Kelos 7 would be integrated into Vralketh territory. The survivors would work in the mines or be sold to other systems. That was how it always went. On the 4th night, Tae-sung couldn't sleep. He left the barracks and walked to the edge of the camp. The stars were bright here, away from the city lights. He stared up at them and tried to remember which direction Earth was. Not that it mattered. Earth was a dead world now, conquered and stripped of resources 80 years ago. Humanity's homeworld was nothing but a symbol of defeat. Jiwoo found him there an hour later. The older man sat down without saying anything. They watched the stars in silence for a long time. You heard the rumors? Jiwoo finally asked. What rumors? About the inner systems. Some people are saying there's been activity near the old core worlds. Ships moving, signals being sent. Jiwoo pulled out a small device from his pocket. It was a civilian-grade communication scanner, old and battered. I've been listening to the broadcasts when I can. There's something happening, Tae-sung. Something big. What kind of something? Jiwoo looked around nervously, making sure they were alone. People are talking about a fleet. A human fleet. They say Earth has been building ships, organizing the scattered colonies. They're calling it the Terran Fleet. Taesung felt something stir in his chest. Hope? No, that was dangerous. Hope got you killed. That's impossible. Humans don't have the resources or organization for something like that. We're scattered across 1,000 systems. I know it sounds crazy, Jiwoo admitted, but the broadcasts are real. I've heard them myself. Voices speaking Korean, English, Mandarin, Spanish. They're talking about liberation, about remembering their scattered brothers and sisters. He paused. They're talking about us. Before Taesung could respond, an alarm blared across the camp. Emergency lights flashed red. Something was happening. Both men scrambled to their feet and ran toward the command center. Grexith was shouting orders, his forearms gesturing wildly. The other Vralketh warriors were grabbing weapons and moving toward their positions. Through the chaos, Taesung heard one word repeated over and over: contact. Something had just entered the Kalos system. Something big enough to make the Vralketh nervous. Taesung looked at Jiwoo, and in that moment they both thought the same thing. Maybe the rumors were true.